Hey folks, in this video you're going to learn how to add sounds and presets to Sunday keys for Ableton. Whether these are presets that you've designed yourself, presets that are included in Ableton's stock library, or sounds that you've purchased from sundaysounds.com or that you found somewhere else online. You can use sounds from any of those sources within Sunday keys for Ableton, and it's really, really easy to do. Once you learn how to do it, it's as simple as dropping your sound in where you want it to be, and you're ready to play. So here's how to set this up. Let's say that you wanted to use a stock preset from Ableton within Sunday keys. So I'm going to go over here to the browser, and let's go to Instruments. And then I'm going to go here, we'll open up Simpler, and I'm going to grab this drift pad. That's good to go. All right, so this is what I want to do. Now you can drop any preset you want into any of the tracks here in Sunday Keys for Ableton. You can even create new tracks for these presets if you'd like. We've done all the work for you if you decide to use them in the tracks that are already created. So you can choose which of the 8 main tracks you'd like to use this sound in, and you can also add sounds to the extra section over here, which we haven't talked about much so far here in these videos, but this extra section is just an empty placeholder with all the behind-the-scenes programming already done for you, so you can easily add any extra sounds that you'd like to it. Now I kind of like to stick with the nomenclature of pianos, pads, synths, and auxiliary sounds, so let's drop this into the pads track. So when you want to add a sound in, you just need to decide which of these numbered clips down at the bottom you want to use. So we're just going to keep it simple and go with your instrument 14. So the simplest way to do this is just play the clip that you want to add it to, and then it's automatically going to be selected down here in your chain selector. Now if you're not seeing this, if you're seeing clip view, then just click on instrument view over here. And this is chain selector. This is actually where the sound is going to live. So now that you've got that opened up, you can see where it says drop an instrument or sample here. And this is all you have to do. Just click and drag the drift pad and then hover right here, and you'll see that blue line appear, which lets you know that you can drop it. And when you do that, then it's going to be ready to play. It's just going to take a second for it to load up, and then you can start playing. I'll mute this piano here. Then you could add any effects that you wanted to that are in your effects library. You could process it however you wanted. You could put it within an instrument rack if you wanted to add some macro controls like we've done with the stock presets in Sunday Keys. It's as simple as that. Now let's do the same thing but with a third-party plugin. Oh, and if you wanted to, you could just rename this here, drift pad, so that it was easy for you to know what was going on there. And then any place you wanted to use this on the track, you could just copy and paste that clip, and it would be ready to go. And all of the other presets are going to be off when you choose this clip. And that's all because you dropped it in here, and then this clip is selecting chain 14 here in chain selector. So you could rename this as well if you wanted to, like so that it was nice and obvious for you when you go to work with it. You can minimize this if you wanted. And like I said, you could add audio effects, you could add MIDI effects, and then you could put it in an instrument rack if you wanted to be able to take some macro control over it in the moment. All right, so now let's do the same thing. We're going to add an Omnisphere to this Your Instrument 15 link in the chain. So that's this one right here. So this is about the same. Now, if you've not used third-party plugins in Live before, then you want to go up to Preferences, and here under File Folder, you've got the ability to choose plugin sources. So depending on if you're on Windows or Mac, you'll have options for audio units on Mac and then VST plugins on both Windows and Mac. And you can use a custom folder if you'd like. Ableton tells you how to do that if you've got your plugins installed somewhere specific. And then you can also use system folders. And then after you've made changes here, or the first time you set it up, just go ahead and hit that Rescan Plugins button there, and it will find all of the plugins that you have installed and ready to use within Ableton. So assuming that you've got your plugins ready to go, then you're just going to click on Plugins here from Categories. I'm going to choose Omnisphere, and then I'm going to click and drag right here into this drop an instrument or sample here area, and then it's going to load up and it's going to be ready to play. Now it's going to open the plugin by default as well. You can toggle that on or off by hitting this little wrench down here. You can view the plugin as you would like. And then you can go through here and you can use Omnisphere just how you would normally. You can find sounds that you like and you can play them. And you can use the volume control to balance out the volume. So you can access any of the amazing thousands and thousands of presets in Omnisphere by just dragging them onto one of these empty Your Instrument chains here in Chain Selector for any of the tracks. So then you could rename this whatever you wanted. And then you could also rename it here in Chain Selector if you wanted. And then if you ever wanted to delete this or make it something else, then you could just click on the plugin and you could hit the delete key and it would remove the plugin, and then you could rename this back to how it started. And then you could do the same thing over here. If you decided that you wanted to reset things and start back from scratch. So that's the same process that you would use to use Contact if you wanted to use a piano plugin like the Giant, or strings from Complete, or any other third-party plugin that you wanted to use. This is the process that you would use. Now let me demonstrate how we can take it a little bit further when you purchase a library from Sunday Sounds that we've either developed specifically for Ableton, so a collection of instruments that are designed to work specifically within Ableton, or a sample library that we put together for a third-party plugin like Omnisphere or Contact that includes an Ableton integration. So for this example, I'm going to use Prism Volume 1, which is available on our website. This is an Omnisphere sound library that's really awesome. And so I've got it in my downloads here, and it looks like this, and I've unzipped it. And all of our Omnisphere libraries or third-party libraries that advertise themselves as compatible with Sunday Keys for Ableton are going to include Ableton files. If it's an Omnisphere library or something similar, most likely in a folder like this that says Ableton files. And if it's a full-on Ableton release, including a bunch of instrument racks, then it will look a lot more similar to the presets folder that is within Sunday Keys for Ableton. Just always check out the product video for the specific product because we'll have information about how you can get it up and running within Sunday Keys for Ableton. But this is really simple to use. This is an instrument rack here that's included within Ableton files for Prism Volume 1. So all you have to do is click and drag this right here into Ableton, into this drop-in instrument or sample area. And when you do this, it's going to load right up. And it'll take just a second for it to do so. And then here you've got Omnisphere ready to go, and you have this Prism Volume 1 instrument rack. This Ableton rack looks exactly like what you see in Sunday Keys for Ableton. So you've got control over useful tone shaping features like filter cutoff, resonance, reverb, octave, EQ controls, sidechain, and pulse. And the type of controls that you have here in this rack can vary depending on the focus of the release. So we designed these to give you as much flexibility and tone shaping control as possible. So then once you've got this ready to go, then you can go to the libraries that you've installed via the .omnisphere file that's included with the Omnisphere release. Or if it's an Ableton rack, it'll just be ready to play and you won't even have to open up any plugins because it'll all be programmed. But then I can choose any of these pad sounds here from this release. I will grab this Airy feedback pad and I can just load it in. Then I can add some reverb. I could sidechain it if I wanted. Or we could add some pulse. And when you buy from Sunday Sounds and you're using these Ableton racks that we include, you can simply scroll through the different steps, the different presets in the library. without having to do anything here within Ableton. You can just use this as your starting point as your host for the sound, and then you can add extra tone shaping control here. So it's really, really cool to be able to do this, and then you can rename your clip and your preset here in Chain Selector so that you know what it is. And then you could add as many instruments as you wanted above or below that. So once you've loaded this Ableton rack in for the first time, you can just hit this little save icon here, and it's going to automatically save it to your user library. So you can go back in here and access this at any time without having to go back into your file browser. You can just use the browser here within Ableton, and you can load up any of the presets from that library in it. It's really, really cool and a nice, quick, easy way to be able to add those sounds in and use them in Sunday keys just like you would use any of the stock presets. So all that programming work has been done for you. And you can place those sounds purchased from our website in any of the tracks here, including the extra section. I like to keep them sort of categorized, but you can put them wherever you would like, whatever makes the most sense to you. And you can even add additional tracks. A quick way to do that is just to select an entire track and then hit copy and paste, and it'll create a duplicate of the entire track. You can delete any of the clips that you don't want and just use these Your Instrument tracks if you like, and then you're going to be ready to go without having to do any programming yourself. Now, if you happen to fill up all of the 26 Your Instrument presets that are included for each track, you can add more. You can add up to 127 total. So we start you off at 14, so you can go from 14 all the way up to 127 here within Chain Selector, so you can add tons and tons of sounds to each track, probably more than you would ever need for any one given performance, and it's really simple to use. So in order to know how to add extra presets here in the Chain Selector, we have to talk a little bit about what Chain Selector is. And so for just a minute, we're going to get a little bit nerdy and dig into the mechanics of how these Ableton instrument racks work, how Sunday Keys is able to pull up these presets for you seamlessly without any pauses or interruptions in the sound when you change presets. We do this by using what's called Chain Selector in Ableton Live inside an instrument rack. So each of these individual instruments here contains another set of instruments, perhaps another instrument rack, some plugins, an instrument plugin, etc., etc. And each of these functions as a link in the chain. So they're all on this one track, but they're their own individual little things within that track. So to tell Ableton which we'd like to use at any given time, we use what's called Chain Selector. So if you click this chain button right here, you can see that you have numbers from 0 all the way up to 127. So 0 by default is off. So anytime that you hit this off clip, it sets Chain Selector to 0, which is off for everything. None of these instruments are on link 0. Then when you hit the worship piano, Chain Selector, which is this little dot right here, jumps to link 1 in the chain, which is our worship piano rack. And then when we play the mod piano, it jumps to link 2, which is the mod piano, etc., all the way down here. You can see these steps as we keep going all the way down to 40. But let's say that you ran out of room, you had 40 different instruments in this rack, and you needed to use more on this same track. So you can do this pretty easily. You just need to add another link to the chain. So the quickest way to do this is just to copy and paste this instrument rack that's right above number 40 here. So you're just going to copy and paste it. It'll take Ableton just a second to do that. And then you'll have 2 duplicates here. So I recommend right away that you just rename this one, 41. And then all you need to do here is within the Chain Selector, you just need to grab this little blue bar and make sure you hover right over the middle of it. When you see the arrows facing both ways, you're right in the middle. And then you're going to drag it, click and drag over to 41. And then if you needed to add another, you do the exact same thing. Copy and paste that line. This instrument rack right here, you can rename it 42, and then click and drag over to 42. So you could do this all the way up to 127 if you saw fit, and you could add up to 127 different instrument racks to this track that you could pull up. Now the only step that's left is to actually add the clips up here that tell Ableton which link you want in Chain Selector. So to do this, it's basically the same process. We're going to select this Your Instrument 40 clip, and we're going to copy and paste it. So I'm going to stick it down there, and then we're going to rename it Your Instrument 41. Now that you've got it renamed, you're going to double click on the clip. Then you need to go down here to the envelope and click on Chain Selector right here. And you'll see this red dot. That means there's already some automation there. And this is what we're going to change to Chain 41. So when you click on Chain Selector, you'll probably see this range here with nothing going on. You've got to actually scroll up a little bit, and you'll see this line right at 40. So remember, we copied Your Instrument 40. So right now it's calling up Chain 40 in Chain Selector. We're going to click on this dot and drag the automation up to 41. And that's it. Now when we play this clip, it's going to summon Chain 41 right there. So when we play 40, it jumps to 40. When we play 41, it jumps to 41. So that's how you can add another preset, another clip to the existing 40 that are included with Sunday Keys for Ableton. Now we're going to do the same thing because we also added link number 42 there. So we're going to copy and paste this, Your Instrument 41. We're going to rename it 42. I'm going to double click on the clip. And since we've been working with Chain Selector, it's already highlighted. But if it weren't highlighted, you would just go up here. And if it looked like this, if it looked like a ton of options, you can either just navigate up to the top here where you see that red dot, or you could choose Only Show Adjusted Envelopes, and then it would be your only option there for that clip. And you can drag that up to 42. So now whenever we play that clip, it's going to pull up link 42 in the chain, link 41, 40, 39, 38, 37, etc., etc. So you can get up to 127 different presets and different clips that are pulling up different options here within Chain Selector in Ableton. So that's the limitation that's placed by Ableton to be able to go up to 127 links in the chain. But that's so many different options for you, and you can always add more tracks as well if you feel the need to have more options than that available to you. So I'm going to remove these for right now because we don't need them. So I'm just highlighting them and then hitting delete on my keyboard. And that's all there is to it. So that's how you can add instruments of your own, stock Ableton presets, third-party plugins, and presets that you purchased from SundaySounds.com to Sunday Keys for Ableton. And we work really hard to release really great content that can expand your Sunday Keys for Ableton library, including new Ableton expansion libraries. Whenever we release sound libraries for Omnisphere, we'll be sure to include Ableton integration and more great things like that, all pre-mapped to work within Sunday Keys for Ableton. So be sure to check SundaySounds.com often because we want to be your go-to place to find new sounds and new inspiration as you use Sunday Keys for your live keys rig. So that's how to do this. Thanks for checking out this video. Further down here on the video resource page, you're going to find a lot of short little videos addressing different troubleshooting topics that you may run into as you use Ableton and as you use Sunday Keys for your live keys rig. So check out the troubleshooting section if and when you have any issues, or you can proactively watch through these videos so that if you run into any of them in the future, you might already know the solution to these common issues that may occur for you. Thanks for checking out these videos. Thank you for using Sunday Keys for Ableton. We really appreciate the support, and we hope to talk to you soon. Have fun.